Hey everyone, welcome to part two in a two-part series on strategy approaches in Through the Ages. In my last video, I talked about going for a balanced growth strategy and why playing that way can help improve your chances of winning. This video will explore another approach, and I'm going to call that leveraged growth. And just a reminder, this is mostly applicable to 3 and 4 player games. That's the player count that I know the best. So yes, in the balanced growth strategy, which I spoke about in the last video, just to recap, that's effective because it ensures your overall progress in the game won't be stifled or bottlenecked by just one particular weak spot that you have, be it resource production or strength or what have you. But it's possible to play a style where you don't really worry so much about balancing your growth, and instead you just focus on being so far ahead of your opponents in one particular aspect of the game that it makes up for being behind in everything else. So you just leverage all of your assets, so to speak, and pile them into improving in that one particular area of the game while essentially ignoring everything else. Or I shouldn't say ignoring, because you really can't get away with ignoring other aspects of the game. And it's not for the whole game, is what I'm saying. But for several turns in a row, at least, you're going to be focusing on being really good at this one particular thing, so much that it becomes your core strategy in the game. And I think there are 2 main ways to do this. And then there are a few approaches that straddle the line between balanced growth and leveraged growth that I'll touch on later. I'll call them quasi-leveraged growth strategies. But the 2 main ways, number 1 is a strength-focused game. Get so far ahead in strength early on that you have the opportunity to play aggressions and then in Age 2 also win wars. And then you can use the spoils from those wars and aggressions to make up for the lack of economy that you have, because you really won't be developing economy as much in this approach. You'll be focusing your efforts on getting stronger. So instead of upgrading an alchemy, for example, you'll be spending those 3 resources to build a knight or a swordsman. Instead of going for the Universitas or the Silk Road, you'll be choosing the Great Wall or some wonder that's going to benefit you, in your military push. Maybe the castle or maybe a happy face wonder too, that can allow you to put more units into the military without getting into happiness trouble, just off the top of my head. But you get the idea. And another thing to consider, a real key to this approach, is to have sufficient military actions, because 2 is really not enough for this approach. You're going to be wanting to play your politics phase every turn if you can with this strategy. The politics phase is gold when you take this approach. It's really important. So you're going to need to draw cards, and that can be tough if you're playing aggressions and building units and playing tactics and all these things that take military actions. You don't draw cards in those situations. You don't draw a lot of them anyway. So you're going to need sufficient military actions. And I will say that leaders and wonders are vital to this strategy. The best strength push strategies that I've seen pulled off, they've been fueled by Barbarossa, Ziska, Napoleon, the usual suspects. But there are others too. You could probably put something together, or some kind of mega combination like Genghis Khan, Great Wall, swordsman, and heavy cavalry. That could really be a nightmare for your opponents. Maybe Joan can push strength in that way. I'm trying to think of other leaders off the top of my head, but you get the idea. You're going to want to use those leaders and wonders instead of the balanced growth approach, where I talked about how leaders can be used to shore up weaknesses that your civilization has. In this case, you're going to be using the leaders to really double down on the strength approach. Now, the reason this strategy can be more effective than just developing your board peacefully is it is benefiting you at the same time that it's hurting your opponent. You aren't just gaining 5 resources from an age 2 plunder, for example. You're taking those resources away from an opponent, so it's a swing. You're gaining a benefit at the same time that that person is losing something, and then that could help fuel your overall growth while it holds theirs back. And your opponents are going to have to scramble to keep up with you too if you keep pushing strength. Their economies might suffer while they dedicate resources to trying to keep up with you strength-wise, and they might even you might see them destroying bronze mines, or you might see them destroying farms even to build units just to try to keep up with you and make sure that they're not at risk of an aggression. So their economies can suffer as well if you keep pushing strength. Now, the big downside to this strategy is you are highly dependent on the military cards that you draw. I mentioned earlier that you need those military actions, and maybe like the Colossus can help you get those free draws at the beginning of the age or something, but you're going to have to find a way to get a lot of military draws, because if you don't draw the right cards, this approach can really suffer. You're going to have to find a way to keep the strength lead while also drawing cards, and that's just something that the luck factor is important to this approach. But you take actions to mitigate the luck factor, and that's just getting a lot of draws. Another downside of the strength strategy is can kind of start to run out of steam by age 3. If you haven't upgraded your economy much because you focused on strength, then players who upgraded their economy can start to overtake you in scoring potential and even in strength potential. Even if you hit them with a single aggression or like a war over territory where you just stole 1 yellow cube, that might not be enough. If they were upgrading their economy while you were pushing strength, but you didn't really get a lot out of it, those good economies can start to take over the game. So you're going to need to have sufficient rewards for taking this approach, and you're going to have to kind of hold back your opponent's growth for this to be successful, because you don't want those strong economies to start to be in better shape than you in age 3. All right, so that being said, let's take a quick look at a strength-focused game from the International Championship earlier. Well, actually, it's 2025 now, so from the middle of last year. And this is a good example of why the strength push strategy takes a lot of skill to pull off and requires a tiny bit of luck, but can also be pretty devastating when well done. We have Schwinn here, WHS Vin, who Weidenbaum calls Schwinn, so I'm going to go with that. You see he's the current reigning champion. You probably know that. He's actually won 2 seasons in a row of the International Championship. And he plays a pretty nice strength strategy in this one. And what's remarkable is that he's able to do it from the 4th seat in a 4-player game. Normally that's an uphill battle. You'd be pretty happy if the game stayed peaceful in a 4-player game, at least in age 1 and the beginning of age 2. But Schwinn goes for the strength strategy in this one. How did he do it? Barbarossa, who you see is in his hand down here, did a lot of work for him in this game. Schwinn drew the heavy cavalry tactic and got knights early, and he saved up food. He didn't really go into consumption his first few turns, so he had a lot of food lying around for turn 6. And I do have to mention, speaking of that luck factor, or the good timing factor, I don't want to necessarily call it luck, but good timing for him is that Lambda seeded last turn, and Schwinn hit the foray, so he has even more food lying around. And on turn 6, he goes for Barbarossa and takes this turn. Let me play it. So look at all that food and resources lying around, and he's got the heavy cavalry tactic played. So he is going to be able to build 3 knights and catapult in strength from 2 to 12. And he's going for the Basilica and the rich land. So that Basilica is going to help him be able to put even more units into the military if he gets a chance, because one of Barbarossa's bottlenecks can be happy faces. And this puts him into a pretty dominant military position going into the last turn of Age 1 or the first turn of Age 2. He's going to be leading us quite a bit. Now we're going to obviously try to catch up and stay out of the range of an aggression. But let's see what happens towards the end of Age 2. On turn 12, which is going to be the last turn of Age 2, you can see he's built quite a few units with Barbarossa here. And he manages to steal my vast territory. So, as a parting gift, he's going to get more Barbarossa activations. And he's going to switch to Napoleon and take the Rev idea. That's important for him. So he is going to end Age 2 with 37 strength. That's pretty good for Age 2, I'd say. And I'm going to show you how it ends, too. This is the end of the last turn in this game. And notice that the strength totals aren't actually that high in this game. Our economies are all pretty exhausted from having to keep up in the strength race the entire game, that we don't really reach those high strength totals that you might see in more economy-focused games, and not really high culture production either. Our economies are just exhausted, so the final score is probably going to be pretty low. And as you can see, with Schwinn pushing strength all through Age 2, he's going to be in a slight lead here over me as we approach the end game. And I'll just play out the final impacts, because why not? There's only 3 of them. All right, technology. So the game is still close. And he takes a big lead with the impact of population. That's going to be difficult to catch. And I do catch up with the impact of culture, but not quite enough. He's going to be able to finish off the strength game with a pretty nice victory. The number 2 way to play a leveraged growth strategy is to go for early culture production. And in fact, I think this one might be a little easier to pull off for beginner players than early strength is. The basic idea is you go for a greedy build early. You start producing a lot of culture, take a big lead, and then do everything you can to defend it at the end of the game, or end the game as quickly as possible. Now, I think the best way to do this is with Bach and theaters. Get 2 or even 3 theaters going with Bach, and you have a pretty solid game plan for the rest of the game. If you can get that up and going by mid-Age 2, that's enough of a culture engine to really take you to the end game. The idea behind this approach basically is take the culture lead first and then figure it out later on. So yeah, I think Bach is really the king for this strategy in the higher player counts. You can do it with Shakespeare too, certainly. If you get some early food or some extra yellow tokens or the ocean liner service. And you could also do this with an Age 1 leader, Michelangelo. Go for some happy face wonders and buildings, get the St. Peter's Basilica, then you build some wonders on the side, but you'll focus on getting those happy face buildings and really producing an enormous amount of culture relative to your opponents. You might be producing 10 culture per turn in Age 1, while your opponents are producing 0 or 1 or 2. Now that won't last, but you could take a big lead doing that and then do everything you can to try to hang on at the end of the game. If if you're still in good shape as the culture leader. Now, I'm not saying that's a good idea. Usually, you'll want to play Michelangelo a little differently and focus more on his wonder-taking ability. The greedy happy face strategy is not going to be a good call in a lot of games. I'm just noting that it's possible. It's more in the spirit of leveraged growth, too, to do this with an age 1 leader. Really go for that early culture and try to hang on. That's leveraged growth. I wouldn't call it responsible leveraged growth. I'm not advocating that you do this a lot, but the Michelangelo happy face play, it's pretty reckless, but it could be fun too, and can also be a winning play in the right circumstances. Now, I know I said this video wasn't really about 2-player games, but this game is probably the best example that highlights the strategy that I could think of. This is a classic DJ Parson stream game, and it's an early culture push with Michelangelo. I don't know if I've personally ever played this strategy, so I really didn't know where to look back for it. But I do remember this game, and DJ Parson plays this strategy to perfection. I'm going to say it's turn 11. Yeah, it's turn 11, and he is on 1 strength and producing 22 culture. That is not typical. Now, you're not going to be able to do that in a lot of 3- and 4-player games, but these culture race situations can happen in 3-player games. So, Michelangelo, happy face. I mean, he's got the Basilica, he's got operas going, but remarkably, he just produced, by the way. You can see the card row is going to slide down. And he's behind in culture, even with this crazy leveraged culture strategy, because his opponent, Shilin, or Shilin, has 3 pairs with Shakespeare. So really a culture race, and we're going to see how DJ Parson deals with this. I skipped ahead to turn 18 in this game, so just 7 turns later. And we can see that DJ Parson declares war and is able to get up to 82 strength. So very quickly got up from 1 strength in turn 11 to 82 in turn 18. And that is, spoiler alert, going to allow him to take the victory in this one. So he used that Michelangelo 9 happy faces strategy to keep pace with his opponent, who was just going all in into Shakespeare buildings, and then found an opportunity to pivot to military, which the best players, they find points in the game where they might pivot their strategy to deal with the current situation. Now, I don't think he ever got above 3 science production in this game, so that's interesting too. But he did have Maria Teresa, and that gave him some supplemental science that allowed him to get these key technologies down in order to win the game. I love this 5 mine setup too. Very interesting game. To show an example of this strategy with an age 2 leader, this is another international championship game. And I set out to play a balanced growth strategy in this one, and then shifted to culture production. Why the early culture push? Well, this was my out in the game, essentially. The summary of how this game went is I missed out on iron, and the 2 copies of coal were late. If there was an earlier copy of coal, I probably would have focused on upgrading to that instead. But I had these printing presses going from earlier in the game. I had this drama in hand. So, I knew there were a lot of leaders that synergized with printing presses, and I think there was Shakespeare and Darwin. Yeah, Shakespeare, Darwin, and Gowdy. So I had the printing press going, decided to go into culture production because I am way behind in my economy. This is an out, essentially. I think I'm behind in this game. These guys have a lot of production going, but I have Shakespeare's ability to build very cheaply. So I build a pair here, and grab the cannon. Now I'm going to produce here, and I think the strategy here is these guys are going to inevitably catch up with their strong economies, but maybe I can just take a big culture lead and try to end the game fast and hang on for the win. That's the goal right now. I'm not even ahead in culture. As you can see, I'm tied right now with Martin Pecheur. But yeah, if I can produce a lot, maybe they won't catch up fast enough, because they're going to catch up. Maybe it just won't happen fast enough. I think that's the way I'm going to go in this game. Now, and I do have the Acropolis too, I think. Got this bar at it. Yeah. So it worked out okay in this game. Spoiler alert, not great. I think my civilization ended up having a lot of weaknesses, and this is the Grandmaster division in this one, so they're going to be exploited. But I was able to hold on for second. PV4 really ran away with the game, and Martin, he hammered me with aggressions all throughout Age 3, but I got pretty lucky in that he didn't draw a war. So I think this was an example of perhaps one of my outs working. And yeah, just if you have 3 resource production and these Age 1 buildings, Shakespeare can help you go for that culture push. I think a balanced growth play in this spot, it's probably not going to work, right? I think a balanced growth play would be building a 4th mine maybe, or just, I don't know, going into military. I think the obvious play is to go for the cheap culture production here and just try to figure out things in later this age and then in Age 3. So those are the 2 best leveraged growth approaches to the game, I believe. The strength-focused game and the early culture production push. Now, I did mention some quasi-leveraged growth strategies earlier. I'm just going to give them an honorable mention. I think colony games could qualify as leveraged growth. There are some games where it just makes sense to be hyper-focused on colonies. If there's a big payoff like the Suez Canal or Cook, possibly Mandela, if you get a lot of those yellow cubes. There's just games where you're going to want to focus on colonies, and you're still going to go for like a balanced growth approach, but you're so focused on colonies that, I think that could qualify if you're building extra units to send off and if you're researching cartography before anything else. So yeah, that's leveraged growth, I would say. It's not quite an all-in strategy, but you are going to be using that. You're going to say like, okay, this is a colony game. That's my plan. Get a lot of colonies. Maybe you're going to bid 2 units for certain colonies and then snag the Suez Canal and figure everything else out after that. Honorable mention to colony games. Another quasi-leveraged growth play is a Michelangelo wonder building game. Now, we talked about Michelangelo already, and we saw that incredible DJ Parson game. But in most cases, you're going to want to focus more on Michelangelo's wonder building ability and treat the culture production from the happy faces as more of a side effect. So you're going to deviate from a normal game plan still with Michelangelo quite a bit, actually, because you're going to want to build whatever's available for you to build, essentially. But you don't really abandon other aspects of the game either. You might still build alchemies, for example, and you're certainly going to still need to build military units. So this is somewhere in the middle between balanced growth and leveraged growth. In fact, I actually have a game in mind I'm going to pull up just to illustrate a Michelangelo wonder building game. This is a game from the International Championship, or the Intermezzo Championship, actually, a little more than a year ago. And you can see in this game, DB Starman managed to build 7 wonders in one game. That has a nice ring to it, right? 7 wonders. How do you think he did it? He was Michelangelo. I think that might be the only way to do it. But the point is, he didn't achieve this by being selective about which wonders he was going to build. He just built whatever was available on the row. You could see, for example, that he has the Suez Canal with just one colony. But it did do him quite a lot of good in this game. I mean, look at this beautiful civilization. It has pretty much everything. And he does go on to win the game pretty convincingly over me and Tamaris. So, yeah, if you take Michelangelo and focus on his wonder building ability, you're going to get some benefits that, make deviating from that balanced growth approach pretty worthwhile. Now, of course, a lot of things went right for him in this game to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to pull this off in every game, but it's a good example of quasi-leveraged growth, so to speak. All right, I think that's it, guys. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this concept of balanced growth versus leveraged growth. Could probably talk for hours about it because there's a lot of nuance in this game. But I say when in doubt, let the balanced growth strategy be your rule of thumb. But there are opportunities to make good winning moves that deviate from that strategy that will become more apparent as you improve at the game. And if one of these opportunities opens up, you really shouldn't hesitate to go for it because it could be a good, nice winning move, and it's usually a fun approach to the game too. Okay, everyone, have a good day, and I will talk to you next time.